The biggest stars.
I enjoyed it. I felt good out there. I would love to come here and race.
And the inside info.
This is the T-bar setup. This clips into the bottom of the cam lock.
The only fast channel powered by the NASCAR Cup team owners who know all about speed.
How am I even going to drive for 3.5 hours without having a radio in the car?
The most NASCAR team content anywhere. Climb on board.
Communication is key in the racing world. When it comes to at-the-track communications, there is only one place to call. Racing Electronics is the #1 source for professional race communications worldwide. Over 20 years in the business proves their dedication to the sport. With every driver and crew communication, two-way radios and headsets, scanners and more, Racing Electronics is a one-stop communication source for all your motorsports needs. Before the green flag flies, make sure you have all your team communication gear from Racing Electronics. Stop by and see a Racing Electronics representative at the track near you. Visit their showroom in Concord, North Carolina, or order online at racingelectronics.com.
I'm Kyle Larson, and you're watching Racing America.
Welcome in, friends. It is another episode of Dirty Air. Rodney Rodriguez, happy to join you guys on a Thursday afternoon. Of course, as always, I'm in Central Texas and delighted to be doing a middle-of-the-day program for you here on Dirty Air. And again, this is how the show is going to work these days, where it's going to be middle of the day, afternoon. You never know when you're going to get live content right here. We're going to talk about, as we always do, we're going to talk about the great stories when it comes to motorsports. And we're definitely not, and today's a great example. I'll get to that here in just a second. But we just like to showcase the people that really make motorsports real. I mean, because that's what it is. I always say clean air is good. Times like this, dirty air is where we get together and we just talk about the people and personalities that make our sport such a great, such a great thing to be a part of. Before we dive in, I do, of course, want to pass on thoughts, not only from myself here with Dirty Air, but obviously Racing America. Lots of pretty volatile storm situation, it looks like, about to be happening in Florida. And of course, we want to keep those folks top of mind, because when it all comes down to it, that's the most important thing. I saw our friends over at Cordele Motor Speedway, some of the different places that are already opening up their campgrounds and so forth to people that are needing to retreat from all of that stuff going on. So lots of thoughts and prayers going out to those folks. I've talked on this show a lot of different times. You know my racing history, where I talk about my times racing street stocks and dwarf cars and all the different things that I've done on the racetrack. But I've mentioned it a few times on the program that my car racing fascination is one thing, how it's led me to doing this stuff right now. But it goes way back to being a kid, spending lots of weekends, lots of weeknights at moto parks. Lots of time when it came to motocross back in the days here in Central Texas. And man, some of the greatest memories I have. I had a cousin that was an extremely great motocross racer, and that's we're going down that avenue here this afternoon, diving in as we are live on Dirty Air. Happy to welcome in, and this is double for me, because not only are we going to get to talk about some motocross and so forth, but we also I love to showcase on this show women in motorsports. That's a big driving factor for me on this show. We welcome in live from the beautiful hill country right here of Texas. It is my friend Ryan Harlan. Ryan, how you doing, ma'am?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to jump on here this afternoon. So we'll talk about your passion and what you have going on, because you have lots of things going on. But I want to ask you, because I always preface everything. Tell us. So we're going to talk about Ryan Harlan, the radio host, we'll talk about all of that. Tell us. I hate to say your real life, because our passion is this. Tell us about what you do when you're not doing motorsports related stuff.
I am a real estate agent, realtor, farm and ranch, luxury, residential, and of course a mom. That's my number one job.
Yeah. Isn't that, and there we go, something else that you and I have in common. I did that for a lot of years myself. So let's talk about when it comes to being at the track and being on bikes and so forth. There's always a story that goes way, 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 way back. Talk about how all of that started happening for you.
How I got into dirt
Yeah.
bikes.
Yeah.
So I was living in Prescott, not Prescott, Prescott,
Not
Arizona.
Dak. Sorry.
um, Tale as old as time. Met a dude that had a dirt bike, and I always preface my show with a lot of motocrossers start riding dirt bikes when they're young, and that's not how it started for me. I was 21 when I got
Wow.
on a dirt bike, and back then, I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but if you think, women in motorsports is few and far between now, you can imagine how it was back then. So that's what really pushed me to do it. I'm like, oh, chicks don't do this. Well, let me do it. Let me show you that I can do it too. So that's how it happened on a YZ 125 two-stroke.
Oh, I love that. So talk about that part because I know in short track stock car racing, same situation. I mean, ladies are doing it at great levels right now, and there are substantial amounts of them. But back when I was a kid, I mean, and when I started racing, there were very few, like you talked about. Was there pushback? Was there I don't know what jealousy? Kind of talk about that part when you started out.
Well, I didn't. So I learned on trails in
Mhm.
Arizona. So it wasn't necessarily motocross then. But I mean, yeah, there's always jealousy, especially when you're a good looking female. It's, you get a lot of pushback from wives, especially if they don't ride
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you do ride, and it's a bro sport. So yeah, I mean, I get pushback all the time, even now on, sometimes I'll comment on like a Facebook group, Texas Motocross, and there's always that one guy that, pops up to
yeah.
tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
something that never seems to go away. So with motocross, I've always said you can listen to years and years of shows that I have done, and like I said, I'm deeply rooted in motocross from growing up as a kid. I always said that was the extreme sport before extreme sports were cool. Kind of speak to that part because this is. I don't care if you're a lady. I don't care if you're a man. Whatever you are, when you jump on that seat and grab a hold of those bars, man. That right there is just kick ass stuff.
I like to call it a healthy adrenaline rush.
Love it. Love that.
Because, people that ride dirt bikes and race motocross, we're different for sure. There's not a lot of people that find joy in um, maybe getting hurt every time you go out there. But for me, not getting hurt obviously is not the goal of the day, but the adrenaline rush, and it's such an individualized sport. You're not on a team, you're not on a football team, you're not on a basketball team. So when you conquer that jump or you win a race or, you clear that double, like there's no other self-satisfying feeling like that. So it makes you really proud of yourself.
Absolutely. And I love that analogy right there, the way you tie all that together, because in car racing, once you get up to major league stock car racing and so forth, you always have a team. I mean, you have a pit crew and so forth. I mean, when you're on a bike, I mean, you've got folks back there, but I mean, it is you. I mean, you're the individual on the bike that has to make stuff happen. You mentioned right there about your show, so let's talk about that. So when my shows first started. I mean, I was one of the first short track live I don't even know if we called it podcasts back in those days that just showcased racing. And you have a live motocross show 6 to 6:30 p.m. Central right in Wimberley, which, like I said, beautiful hill country. If you haven't been there, you need to check that out. kwvh.org, the website there. Talk about what all you do right there to just make this thing front and center. And it's got to be pretty damn cool to be in, as far as I know, the only live one in the country.
That's what I've been told by my general manager, that I am the only live motocross show in the nation. So I'll never not get excited about saying that. So I am the creator, producer. You know, they came to me, the general manager and his sidekick. You know, they were like, you should do a radio show. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Can I talk about real estate? And they're like, no, you can't talk about real estate because everybody's a realtor in Wimberley.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it for a while. And one day I just kind of had the light bulb go off and I was like, oh my God, I'll talk about motocross. And I'll highlight, originally was highlighting just female riders, but I've branched out into interviewing men as well. Because like you said, you know, real estate is what I do for cash, but motorsports is my passion. And I want to be able to prove to anybody in this industry that I can interview anybody, whether you're a male or a female.
Yeah. Man, that is so great. So how hard is it for you? Because I know with racing, because I think my show hit Austin radio before COTA, you know, before we had Formula One and all these different things at COTA. How hard is it for you to try to explain? Because I think unless you're a fanatic, because that's what we are. If you're a fanatic, you understand a lot of what folks like you and I and our fraternity discuss, where you have to, I mean, you don't really have to dumb the sport down, but you got to really 101 this thing to try to get people to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I've been doing it a little bit over a year now, and I had to explain the sport a lot in the beginning, and I still do like a terminology, you know, during the show of, you know, like a get off or a whip or a berm, things like that, things
Yeah.
that general public don't know that terminology. But now that I'm a little bit established and people know who I am and are following me, I've been able to talk about the sport a little bit more. But motocross is not something the general public typically knows about. So that has been a hurdle, getting people to know the sport. But, you know, that's also the beauty of social media these days, because, you know, I make it a point of staying on top of that and posting all the time just to, again, you know, establish myself and get people familiar with the sport.
How's the response been? Because I know a lot of times when you're trying to grow something like that, you'll get a pretty good surge starting out where it's different. It's something different. But then I think at the same time, and it really appears like from what you're doing, that you have folks that have jumped on and they're not going to miss your program because the content is just so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going great. I mean, people around town are talking about me, recognizing me, and fortunately for me, that program airs right in between the Texan tailgate, which is the football like pre-game show, and then the football sees the game is right after my show. So I'm really in like a prime spot to, because there's, I mean, that's what's getting the most listened to, right? We're in Texas. Football is life. So I have been lucky enough to get that spot for my general manager. So I think that's helped, you know, being in between a mainstream sport.
And the Wimberley Texans typically have a really, really good football team. So that's
That helps.
that's going to attract some people in. So
Mhm.
I'd love your thoughts, because I know when it comes to, because I really want to hone in with you and talk about local motocross type of things, because to me that's really where the home base of all of this really is. But before I get to that, I do want to ask you. So I know with racing, with car racing, whether it be dirt track or pavement, short track racing, there's a pretty good disconnect between that group and then the folks that may be NASCAR Cup fans or Xfinity Series, whatever that is. How is that for motocross? Because when it comes to Monster Energy Supercross, is there a divide there? Do they look at Monster Energy as well? Those people are kind of like this, or do they really appreciate that is a driving force for what we do?
Um, I mean, motocross, the professional, when you're talking about Monster Energy
Yeah,
Supercross, so that's the professionals, right? Those are the guys
top
that are
tier.
factory backed by Yamaha, Kawasaki, Gas, Husky,
Yeah.
Triumph, things like that. But even the professional motocross series, it's a year-round series. So the Supercross is just, a little part of their season, and then they
Inside.
do the outdoor series. So it's a year-round sport. And then they've also added on the professionals this super motocross series, which
Yeah.
is the outdoor series and the supercross series kind of mixed together. And supercross and the outdoor series is it's a different breed for sure. And when it comes to the amateur motocross scene in Texas, it's typically just been outdoors. But there are some amateur tracks now building supercross tracks. So I think trying to kind of bridge that gap between what the professional scene has and then what is available to amateurs.
So how are we doing? And I'll focus this more to our area here, South Central, regional parts of Texas. How are we doing on the local side? I see a lot of moto parks that are open. I see a lot of like you're talking about where the track may be open for practice and so forth. Are there what's the volume of actual like race events where you would have a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, whatever it is, if you have lights where you actually have motos and feature races and all that? How healthy is that, or are we at more to where it's, I mean, like you said, the amateur, um, just riding, trail riding, and all that?
So COVID was a big boom because everybody
Yep,
wanted to be outside, right?
yep.
So motocross really a big boom in that time. But it's not a cheap sport. Not one bit. Not even if you want to race one class in an amateur, it's $45 just to race. Most tracks locally, if you want to go practice, it's between $35 and $45. So I don't want to be racist, but
No, no,
it's known as a rich white man's sport.
yeah.
That's just what it is. So, and you know what our economy is right now. A lot of people are struggling. So, I think the amateur scene is struggling a little bit for sure.
It gets extremely hard because I know with car racing, and it's like everybody's always looking to get better. I mean, with car racing, it's like, okay, you figure out something, and then it's like, oh, I can spend a little money on shocks and do this, and it just continues to evolve itself, and the cash register keeps ringing, is what happens, and it gets extremely hard. Um, One of I think what has always been so cool to me about bikes and about outdoor racing, because I much prefer the outdoor
Me
part.
too. Me
Yeah,
too.
it's like, yeah, those guys, I mean, when you go to a Supercross show, I mean, I
it's
love its packaged 3-hour thing. You are out the door.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is very much like a circus. It's very compact and done. But when it comes to the amateur stuff, to the outdoor stuff that we do around here. Talk about the family aspect, because I know with car racing, it's the same thing. You go, there's dads, sons, daughters, moms, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and that's really what it's all about. That's really what this sport really is.
It is a very family oriented sport. I have an 18-year-old and he's been racing, I mean, hardcore racing since he's, well, they don't start now until they're like 5, but he's
Yeah.
been on 2 wheels. He was 2 when he got his first PW50 with training wheels. Um, so I mean, he's grown up at the track, like he doesn't know any other sport. So I mean, this is what we've done his whole entire life. Every weekend, we load up, we're going to a different track, whether you're racing or you're riding. But I mean, like you said, it's mom, dad.
Yeah.
He's got a little sister. She's there cheering him on. So it's definitely, again, a healthy family sport. You're outside. You're not on, electronics. A lot of the tracks in North Texas, like you can't even get cell service. So the kids will complain, but I think the parents know that it's really a good thing, when you get your kids
Mhm.
off electronics, for sure.
So how is the growth for you guys? Because I know in short track car racing, one of the things that we struggle with is to try to get new folks in. I mean, we've got a core of people that have been doing it for 50 years or whatever, but man, they start dying off, and we're like, shit, now what? I mean, to supplement new people in, and that's why I think it's such a service that you do with your program to get in front of people to be able to get them to bite in because. I've always said it's like anything else. You get people there live one time to whatever's going on, they're going to get a taste of it and they're going to be hooked. How is the influx of new people to your sport right now?
So that is definitely a goal of mine. And I actually am a USMCA, United States Motorcycle Coaching Association coach. That was created, I believe, 2 years ago to do exactly that. Like, we have got to bring
Yeah.
new people into this sport. And for me, it's bringing more younger girls into this sport because there isn't a lot of females in this sport. And if we don't get the next generation involved in this sport, especially for females racing, then there will not be this sport anymore. So that is definitely a goal of mine and a goal as a mom to show my daughter to bring other females into the sport and show them that it's not just a male dominated sport, that you can compete. And you know I mean, I'm trying to be a player in this
Yeah.
motorsport world, and that's one of my goals, is to show young girls that you can do it for sure and grow the sport. And that is the goal of the USMCA. Is, I think it was like, bring in like 5,000 new riders into the sport, I believe, in like 2 years.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So talk about that part. I mean, when you're actually, I mean, instructing, I mean, that's pretty freaking cool right there. I got to tell you that that's really badass. So that part, I mean, how has that been for you when you actually, I mean, I'm sure maybe folks are a little apprehensive at first to actually take on a bike like that, but kind of talk about that part about it.
I mean, I have a whole program, so I'm not gonna like stick you on a 250
Oh, damn.
right away. You're not getting on the track right away. I mean, I'm going to start, I have, like I said, a whole training program. Like, we're going to go through the basics about positioning, right? Positioning is key on motocross. You've got to learn how to control the bike. Most people don't even drive cars with clutches. So you
I
have to
know.
teach people how to release the clutch while giving it gas. Going over, gears. Like I said, like manual transmissions, not a lot of people know about
Yeah.
manual transmissions. So I really start with the basics. A lot of bike manufacturers have come out with electric bikes recently. So that is kind of a starting point for people. And even little kids, as little as like, as soon as they can walk, they have like these balance bikes,
Yeah.
Striders, Stasics are the balance bikes that are electric. So, I mean, you really, really have to start with the basics. And once you get the basics of positioning and being able to control the bike, then we're just going in an open field,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, let's learn how to turn the bike because, motocross and riding a dirt bike is about balance, and so you really have to learn how to balance. And then maybe we'll move to like the kid track. And, you know, I mean, it's not a short-term training program. Let's put it that way. I mean, there's definitely some levels and steps to even be able to get on a national track per se.
And that's so important because I know in car racing and short track racing, we have kids that that jump into this, and I mean, they don't know how to start a race. Hell,
Hmm.
some of them may not know what the flags mean, Ryan. And it's
Yep.
like you throw them out on the track, and they pile up a field, and people want to pile on the kid, and it's like, well, they didn't know. I mean, I think it's just so important to learn that part.
Talking about track etiquette, that's what you're saying. Like you have to teach that track
Exactly.
etiquette. Like it's a family sport. Most of us take care of each other in the sport. Respect the person's property that owns that track. That's a huge
Yeah.
thing. They're opening up sometimes their homes to us.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean it's a lifestyle that you have to teach 360, right? It's a whole it's not
Yeah.
just getting on a bike and going on a track and clearing a double, for sure.
And I really think, Ryan, that all of that is so important based just on the simple fact that, I mean, what this is dangerous. I mean, if something goes wrong here in a car, in a boat, I mean, whatever, you've got a little bit
Hmm.
of cushion there, but on a bike, you have nothing. I mean, when you bite it, and it hurts.
Yep, for sure. And that is not the goal when you go out.
No,
Do not want to
no.
crash. So yes, um, that is another part of USMCA is safety, teaching people how to ride these bikes safely. And also every coach has a background check.
Mm.
So you can't be a criminal. You have to learn concussion protocol. You have to
Oh,
learn
wow.
heat exhaustion, CPR. So it's really a higher standard of coaching.
And isn't that something where, I mean, we see it in sports all the time. I mean, you mentioned high school football. I mean, we see that now with the safety aspect, and you go back and you think to 10 years ago or so in our sport where there wasn't a lot of that. I mean, I know in auto racing, the safety apparel has just, I mean, leaps and bounds over what we had before, and it's got to be really neat to see that the sport has become that much more safety conscious about what could happen.
I agree. And I think it's because as things progress, I don't know if that's how it is in the NASCAR, track world, but the tracks are getting like crazier and bigger jumps and people really pushing the limits. So it is important, especially with gear, right? Buy the best helmet you can. I always tell people that, like, if you're going to go spend $10,000 on a dirt bike, buy the $600 helmet. Protect your head. It's your most important asset.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where I was talking earlier about spending money on different race car parts, I'm like, man, get yourself a good fire suit, get yourself everything that you need because
Mhm.
you're the only one that can take care of yourself. So over to your show. I saw that tomorrow. Yes, today's Thursday. Tomorrow on Friday, so you talked about broadening the horizons of what you're doing, where you started out with female personalities, and now talking to dudes and all the different stuff. I saw that now you're going over to the super bike world. Talk about that part there because I super bikes for me, it's one of those things where I'm not going to watch it on TV, but I've been to Coda to watch them, and it's really cool to see in person. Kind of talk about that evolution.
So funny story. My daughter she came home from school one day and she was like, "This teacher took a picture of my Yamaha sweatshirt." And I'm like, "What?" And my daughter's 8, so you never know like what's the truth. And like probably 8 months later, we were in HEB recently and she was like, "That's Miss Price. That her brother is so and so." And I'm like, "Okay." So I go and talk to Miss Price,
Yeah.
and Miss Price's brother is Dr. Price, who is the chief medical director for Moto America.
Crazy.
And I actually went out to the last race at Coda a couple weekends ago and met him. And yeah, so that's how it progressed. Life is crazy. So yeah, he'll be on tomorrow night.
Oh, man, that's awesome. That's a good get right there. That
Yeah.
you never know. You never know who you're going to run into at a racetrack or a park. I mean, it's like I've been at different racetracks, and I see folks, and we start having conversations. Mainly, this is at a NASCAR type of thing where there's somebody there, drinking beer and totally scuzzed out, dressed like I usually am, and we start talking. Oh well, I'm an attorney. And it's like, oh, well,
Take your
there,
card.
yeah, yes, absolutely. So, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys. There are just so many different diversity is just amazing in this sport.
I agree. That was, I always prepare for my shows like you do, I'm
Yeah.
sure, and do homework and stuff like that. And that's one of my, um, maybe mainly to my parents because they're like, you're crazy. They don't come from like a two-wheel background.
Yeah.
But some of the individuals that I have interviewed, I mean, they are doctors, they are bankers,
Yeah.
and then there's real estate agents and blue collar workers. Like there is no really, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no prejudice when
Yeah.
it comes to the love of motorsports, I think. Do you agree?
I totally agree, and I think that's the one. Inclusiveness is very important these days, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent about that. But it very much does seem that I don't care if it's two wheels, four wheels, or whatever it is. Everybody's very accepting, and I know that on the car racing side, there's a lot of divide in the country right now. But when you get to the track, none of that really matters. It's just you're just people hanging out doing what you love, and I think that we need a lot more of that in our sport. Motorsports brings that on where other sports not so much.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I grew up playing team sports, when I
Mhm.
was younger, but my kids don't do team sports. And I mean, it is a family. You don't see some people, you only see them at the track, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not hanging out Monday through Friday because we all are working and trying to make money so that we can go to the track on the weekends. But yeah, it is. And sometimes even when you don't see people for a couple of years and then you see them at the track, I mean, it just goes back to the same thing. And then, everybody will go to the gate with your kid or, you, and when you pass that lap, there's all your friends are there cheering you on. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's where having grown up in the sport, to me, it's like people talk about things from childhood and different movies and all these different things, and I'm like, man, I didn't see any of that stuff. I mean, I was at a racetrack or somewhere every weekend. I mean, there was none of that for me, and I don't regret that. I don't regret that at all. So let's talk about give folks details of your show. Obviously, I've got it pulled up right there. How you can catch that for folks that are outside of our area that can't get it on terrestrial radio. There's your spot right there. But kind of talk about that part, and then tell folks, guide folks over to the coaching site because I think that's pretty massive right there, girl.
Yeah, so you can also download the app. You don't necessarily have to
That's
go
right. Mhm.
online and watch the show. So you can download the KWVH app on Android or Apple. And then you can also go back in the archives on that kwvh.org, and my show will be up for 2 weeks. And I also have a YouTube that I have started uploading my shows to as well. So you can catch that YouTube. It's DIRT_CHIX, Dirt Chicks.
Dirt chicks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
And then, I always follow me on all things social media. I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram. I do lots of little clips there. But of course, live is always better. But but then the coaching side, yeah, like I said, I'm a certified United States Motorcycle Coaching Association coach. You have to be certified. You have to be able to prove that you have the knowledge to teach people this sport. I was at a track this summer and had some plans to stay there, but our values didn't necessarily align anymore. So I have found a new track. It's out in Dale, Texas,
Oh,
right
is
in
that
between.
Murphy's?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
badass place.
Murphy's.
I've seen it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Murphy's MX Park. They're gonna let me do some training out there. I'm actually training a gentleman out there this weekend, and he, I should know this, but he has, it's like I'm gonna sound so terrible. The special class. He's got a little bit of a disability
Mhm,
with
mhm.
one of his limbs.
Yeah.
Um, So not only can I teach females, but if you have any sort of disability, I have been teaching that gentleman how to ride as well. But I really want to bring little girls into this sport and show them that they can do it. They can compete with the boys. And that's my ultimate goal. But you can find me on motorcyclecoaching.org to book me there. There's also an app, motorcycle coaching app, and you can find my profile with that same picture that you keep putting up. That's me. Yep.
There she
And
is.
and I mean, even if you're in Pennsylvania and you want me to come train you, I think my mileage is like 5,000 miles. So I'm definitely willing to travel all over the country at any track, not just Murphy's in Texas. So yeah, anywhere.
Isn't this one of those things to where this sport, folks joke around, and again, two, four wheels, whatever. This when they say it gets in your blood, I mean it really is.
It's a problem.
I know. I know. It's Ryan, I am seriously making an effort next year to back away from some of my live on site stuff, and I have no idea how I'm going to freaking be able to do that. But these shows will continue, but it really is just a way of life, isn't it? I mean, it's what kind of drives your whole day.
Yes. I mean, yes, this is what I think about 24/7. We talked about I'm involved in real estate, but like I probably should put a little bit more effort into real estate, but it's just not as fun. Like, and once it gets in your blood, it's so hard to get rid of. Even, you'll go through phases where you get injured or you do really bad in a race. I mean, I've like sold dirt bikes and then, 6 months later, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting a bike again because you just can't step away from it.
So I have to one more. I'm sorry. I know I'm
No, I
dragging you
have
out
time.
here.
I have time.
I know, like when I was like actively competing, when I was racing, it was one of those things where we'd get pissed off at a track, and it's like we're never coming back, and we'd go find another track, and then before long we were back at that other track again. Where it just gets so ingrained in you that it's hard. People just do not understand addictions and so forth. Racing is definitely that.
A healthy one.
A healthy one. Well, I guess it's a healthy one most of the time.
Once it's in your blood, it's just, again, when we talk about, go back to like team sports, and there just isn't anything like being on a dirt bike. There's nothing in my lifetime that I have experienced that gives me that same feeling of riding my dirt bike, whether I'm happy or stressed out or sad or, every kind of emotion. Like, I'm going to go ride my dirt bike and I'm going to feel a little bit better once I get off of it, for sure.
It really is one of those things. I mean, I know, like strapping into a race car, it's like you're nervous, you're whatever, your mind is racing, but you get in that car and you put the belts on and you tighten that stuff down, and it's like everything else just is gone, right?
You can't think about anything else because you have to focus on what you're doing so you don't get hurt. So that's the beauty of it, is it's really one of the only things I think that you can step away from whatever's going on in your life and just focus on that.
Absolutely. Great conversation. Thank you for jumping on this afternoon. This has been a lot of fun. It's going to be podcast at RodneyRodriguezSports.com, at Racing America, RacingAmerica.tv, on all the social platforms, RPM, sports media. It'll be everywhere. I'll get you a local copy of it so you have it as well. Man, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this, and let's keep it. I've got family in Lytton Springs, so right out that way by Murphy. So I'm going to come see you sometime. I'm going to come see you. I'm not getting on a bike, but I'll come see you sometime.
Yeah, and you'll have to watch my son because he's way faster than me, and you'll be like blown away. He's crazy. So
nice. I'll check it out. Well, we'll have him on here too before too long.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Super cool. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye, Ryan. There she goes right there. Great stuff. Ryan Harlan And like she said, I mean, just such a great story with everything that she does. I think it's just so fascinating right there. I've followed her for some time, and just kind of seeing the different things that how she's doing things for her sport. And I mean, I think it's just really amazing that that happens right there. And like I've said so many different times, and like I mentioned to her, when it comes to motocross, when it comes to outdoor riding, that is just something that woman, man, child, whatever you are, if you take that on, you are definitely my hero, because that's not something that anybody can do. Great conversation. Again, all of this podcast a little bit later on this afternoon. As a matter of fact, when this live goes done, it'll be podcast there. So be sure and check that out and share it. Be sure and like all the YouTube pages, and be sure to follow Ryan as well on her socials. And let's help her do what she's trying to do. Trying to help grow that sport, trying to help get ladies involved. That's what it's all about, and that's what we do here in the sport. All right, guys, we'll do Dirty Air again. Keep an eye on the socials, because that's where you're going to know where these are popping up, depending on folks' availability. Ryan wanted to go live, and I was like, thank you. Most people want to tape. She wanted to go live, so that's why we did it in the middle of the afternoon. But you guys keep checking in. We'll bring you more great content right here on Racing America, RodneyRodriguezSports.com. You guys have a great weekend. Find a streamer that's going to have some racing that you can watch this weekend. And if you can't find a streamer and you really want to get crazy, go out and find a racetrack, go out and find a moto park, and be a part of the action. Again, clean air is good. Times like this, dirty air just a tad bit better. From deep in the heart of Texas and Central Texas, my name is Rodney Rodriguez. We'll see you next time right here on Dirty Air.